What's up, guys? Welcome to the second episode of the TRIFLIX cast, where we bring in innovative, creative individuals, people that are passionate about topics, and we get to hear about it. We get to understand what drives them, what pushes them so far. And today we have Abhi Satham. He is the award-winning filmmaker for the 48-hour film challenge. He's entered several times, and with this last year, we partnered together. He won it, and I think he's going to have a little bit to say about that today. So.
Oh, yeah. No, it was great. So thank you for introducing. And last 4 years, I think we have been participating in 48 Hours Film Festival. 3 years, we have learned a lot. But finally, I think fourth year was a lucky one because we had you to partner with us. So it was really great experience overall. So we put together all 3 years of learning into the fourth year. Which turned out really well, and that boosted our confidence, I think. So hopefully we'll do something bigger and better next time.
Yeah. So for people that aren't familiar, what is like the 48-hour film challenge? You've done several of them now. Could you like walk somebody through that process of like preparation? Like what is this competition?
Yeah, so I would call 48-hour film project as a filmmaking on steroid because a lot of us filmmakers, we procrastinate a lot. So this is the best way to get rid of that procrastination phase. So in nutshell, 48 hours is you have 2 days, 48 hours to write a film, shoot, edit, and finish the entire film with the sound score and everything, and submit the film in 48 hours.
Yeah.
So first 48 hours we did was 2016. That year was my first year with the realization. I think in 2010 I had this dream of like starting like focusing more on the filmmaking, doing something. But that 2010 to 2016, I was just procrastinating. That like, okay, I'll do something.
Then it's like every filmmaker. You put it off. You're like, I have all these great ideas, but you never do anything with them. You're like,
exactly.
If I had the crew, if I had the money, if I had the time. But with the competition, it just kind of forces you to go straight into it.
Yeah, because as soon as you register, I think, register into the 48-hour film project, you realize that like, okay, you have to deliver now. Because your name is already there, you already built a team, so you are answerable to them, and that pushes you to actually excel and at least try to make a film. Every year you tend to learn something new and end up doing something better, I think. I think overall 48 Hours Film Project is a great learning experience for anybody who wants to make a film. So I think I would highly recommend it for any level of filmmakers.
Any level.
Yeah.
And what if you mentioned like there's learning experiences, and with each entry you try to take something away from it? Is there, I guess, how many entries specifically have you put in, and is there any key takeaways from those prior ones that you like, wow, I'm so glad I entered, even though we didn't win, I'm glad I got to learn that experience?
Yeah. So I think, so we did total 4. So this one was, 2019 was the 4th year. First year, we were completely raw. We didn't even know exactly what this all is about. And I would say the key takeaway was the writing process. So first year, I thought that like we can have like maximum people in the writing team, so we'll get a bunch of ideas and we can figure out which one is good. So that was the biggest mistake actually, because we had enormous number, 20 people in the writing team. Some of them were across the sea in India. Some of them were sitting all parts of US.
Yeah.
And that process took a long time, because at that time I was not sure exactly which story will work and what are the good things and bad things. And that is where I think the key takeaway from all these 3 years, past 3 years, I would say, the writing process. That's where the most of the time is spent, and that's where we kept on developing that, like which one or what is the right size of the writing team. And this year finally I decided that like, okay, I don't want to like have like 3 or 4 people. It's better to have like one writer who knows his stuff, who has already proved some platform or like somewhere he has already done some great work. And that's what worked for us, I think, mainly.
Yeah. Wow. So working on this project, this was the first one I've ever done, and Abhi brought us in with our team, hired us to do the cinematography work. With this competition, you guys ended up taking the first place for the People's Choice, the second place for the judges' pick, as well as best writing. And if you mentioned like your takeaway was let's switch over to one writer instead of a team of 20.
Yeah.
Is this What is the process? Did the guy start writing the day you received these criteria for the short film, or did you have some takeaways where you like prepared ahead of time? How did that work, that dynamic?
Yeah, so I'll just go back a little bit because first 2 years I had no idea about writing. Third year I started developing my own writing style and started putting in effort. So last year and this year, what I did was 30 days prior to the kickoff of the 48 hours, I promised myself that I'll write at least one story every day. So I had
Yeah.
this word file where I had, maybe I think most of them were the crappy ideas, but at least this year I had 30 different ideas or story ideas, maybe four-liner story uh, prepared for 48 hours, thinking that like I would pick up one of those and give it to writer and ask him to develop. Unfortunately, none of those 30 stories this year, what I wrote, very useful. But he had, I think, 3 or 4 stories already written, basic idea of it. So he pitched in 3 ideas, saying that like these are the 3 stories I had, which are related with the mystery genre, because we got 2 genres this year picked, mystery and a period piece. So he gave like 3 different stories. One of them, then I started thinking that like, okay, which one will take the minimum time and where we can put in more effort on the creativity side.
Right. Like, how can you adapt a script quickly
Exactly.
to these topics rather than spending a lot of time having a great story, but then not being able to produce it within 48 hours?
That's
right.
right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So, moving on with like the preparation, you mentioned that you've done writing for this one as well as some of the other ones. And my understanding is, talking off camera, you've done several parts of like the cinematography, you've done the directing, you've done a little bit of everything. Is there a part that you enjoyed the most, and was that something you got to do this time, or something you look
Yes.
forward to next time?
Yeah, so I think one of my key areas where I'm the most comfortable is editing, and
Really?
that's where I enjoy that stuff a lot. And even in day-to-day life, even if I'm doing the travel videos or stuff, that is the one place where I'm most comfortable. And I have done that this year as well, and the first year as well. And I would say that was my key uh, key aspect of the filmmaking, which gave me courage to go back and directing, actually, because I always wanted to direct, but because of the editing skills I could easily visualize exactly how the shot will look like or where we will make the cuts. And that also helps you while directing, because you are minimizing the time. If one of the shot is not working, you know that like you can tweak it somehow to
Right.
make it work in the editing.
And plus, when you're the director, in
Mhm.
most cases, you can dictate. You have that privilege of working with the writer and saying, all right, we're going to do this or we won't do this.
Mhm.
And then since you did the directing and the editing on this one, it gave you a lot more control with the editing, right?
Yes, yeah, because editing is somehow rewriting. The people say that like you tend to write the film 3 times. First time when you are writing the script, second time when you are actually shooting it or
Yeah.
directing it, and third time is editing, actually rewriting the whole
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So we've been shooting films for a long time, but
Mhm.
I haven't heard that one before. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and this is not my thought, actually. I heard it on some of the podcast
Yeah.
or some of the book, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's really cool. And with like this passion didn't come out of nowhere. Like, I'm sure at some point growing up, you were piqued in interest. How far back does your filmmaking interest go? Like 5, 10? Was it a class you took in school?
So maybe I think the actual realization, or what you call it, as a eureka moment, was in 2010, I guess. That is a year when I came to US from India, and maybe I think because I was on my own here, that's when you get the realization phase, or like you get the time to actually think exactly what you want to do in the life. But 2010 is actually when I started thinking of making films. That's the year I was doing my masters in industrial engineering. So I was still going to the school, but I found similar or like-minded friends who were also keen into filmmaking. So we ended up with like 3 short films. I shot 3 short films, but we never edited them. So those short films are still lying somewhere in my hard drive, which we shot in 2010 with some simple camera, I think, but we didn't know exactly. I didn't know how to edit. So I think it goes back 2010, but the actual doing thing, because you think and then you do, I think so doing happened in 2016 when I just committed myself thinking that okay, I'll do something. And I ended up shooting so in Columbus there is a Indian festival happens, Ganesh festival.
Right.
So I had my iPhone that time, so I kept on shooting all 7 days of the festival.
I'm actually not familiar with the festival. And could you explain what
Yeah,
that is
so
or what that might
yeah,
entail?
so it's a Ganesh festival. It's pretty popular festival in India. So India has like 1,000 different festivals, but this is I would rate it like one of the biggest one.
Hmm.
So usually there is a Ganesh idol, which this festival happens here in Columbus in Commons Building, where this history of this festival goes back maybe I think 100 years when Britishers used to rule India.
Hmm.
This was one festival where everybody used to come together, and it's not just a Hindu festival. Even people from other faiths and religion used to come together to celebrate this festival, and that is where this entire independence movement has happened. So it is
Hmm.
more of a public gathering for some good faith and stuff.
And what's
Uh,
that called?
Ganesh festival, and it's
Ganesh?
actually happening right now. So yeah, if you get a time, I think you can visit. So it started yesterday, and it will go on till Sunday. This Sunday.
Okay.
So it's a 7 day festival, and you will see a big ceremony happening in the downtown on Sunday.
Okay.
So
Well, for people watching, this will probably come out after that happens. But now you know about the
Ganesh festival.
Ganesh
Yeah,
festival. That's
yeah.
really cool. It's a bunch
So
of cultures coming together.
yeah, so I shot 7 days with maybe I think I would say 3 hours or 4 hours long footage of
Hmm.
7 different days. And for a year, I didn't know exactly what to do with it. So after that, I started watching bunch of YouTube videos and taught myself how to edit on Premiere Pro.
Hmm.
And that was my first video. So that was a documentary for like 9 minutes long documentary. There was no dialogue in it, but
Yeah.
it had documentation of all 7 days. And it turned out well, and that gave me a courage actually to go ahead and experiment or learn more about the filmmaking. And that's the first year I entered into the 48 Hours Film Festival, and that the entire journey started from there.
Yeah. So it all started with this documentary, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you went from making documentaries to entering film festivals, several attempts.
Mhm.
You came back this year with 3 awards. What's your goals now? Like you won an award, like that's a filmmaker dream for the
Mhm.
most part. Like what is it to make a short film, like or a full length film? Like where do you want to be in five, 10 years?
So 5-10 years, maybe I think feature length film for sure. But right now, I'm just this film was a 4 minutes long film, so I'm just trying to develop now some other project which will be probably 10 minutes or 15 minutes long short film,
Hmm.
and keep going slowly towards the feature length, which is like 90 to 120 minutes long. So that is a 5 years goal to make a feature length film in 5 years.
Yeah. And when you were attending school for engineering or anything before that while you're over in India,
Mhm.
was there was this part of your original plan or like what was your goal coming to America?
Oh yeah, so yeah, this thing was never a plan, I would say, but I was always, even in the school, I was attracted to the creative stuff. I used to be a caricature artist, so I was more inclined towards art throughout my childhood, even in the engineering college. So I used to perform in my college festivals for dance, theater. So I have done some bit of theater acting and directing. So yeah, so that part was always there, and I would still say that like it's still part of my life, which keeps me alive. And I work in the daytime. I work in company, and then once I go back home, this is what I do. And I keep telling people in my office as well. This is how I try to maintain my work-life balance,
Yeah.
because this is one thing which keeps me sane to go back and like work harder.
Right.
And actually, I'm not kidding, but it improves my productivity at work. If I
Hmm.
work on these small projects like films or painting or anything like creative, some creative stuff after work, that just enhances my productivity. So both the things are kind of complementary.
Yeah, that's really neat. With like the dynamic, I know a lot of people within the creative field don't. They go into it,
Hmm.
feet first, or head first, whatever. They jump straight into it and realize that it's not as profitable as they expected, right? And then they're frustrated because maybe they got a degree in it, maybe they went to school for it and they can't find a way. Um, if you could go back, are
Hmm.
you satisfied with the route you took, or would you have rather gone into the traditional skip engineering, let's go straight into filmmaking? Like with your work-life balance, what do you appreciate more now?
So I wouldn't change anything probably, uh, because one thing is right now that I am not doing it for the bread and butter, and I complete no, and I completely, what do you call it, respect the people who do it. But at this point, at least, I have the leverage, or I have the opportunity to do what I like.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that I have to force myself to do, and that's why I appreciate the work-life balance. Plus, if I go back and take in account my, because a lot of people say that like your engineering knowledge is completely in vain, that like why did you even choose that
Yeah.
route. But I would still say that like all those experiences come into play in the filmmaking,
Yeah.
because engineering is problem solving and filmmaking is as well as problem solving, I think. So
Yeah.
both things are complementary. I appreciate the kind of life I got because there were like different kind of experiences which probably I would have missed out if I have chosen. And I don't know because I haven't gone that route. But sitting here right now in 2019, I don't think that I would change anything because
Yeah.
I still appreciate. And I would say that like the company I work for, Cummins, actually, I have to give them a highest credit for this because they are known for their work-life balance, and because of this, I'm free after 5 o'clock, and after that I have probably I would 5 or 6 hours, and plus a weekend,
Yeah.
and that gives you a lot of, I would say, bandwidth to work on things, and you are not actually bound with the other things or restricted,
Right.
I
You
guess.
have that freedom to do whatever it is outside of
Yes,
work.
exactly.
I like how you mentioned the engineering thing because I get that a lot as well. On the previous interviews or the podcast, we talked to David Baker and go through his background, which is very technical. So
Mhm.
he's doing like an IT, but he's trying to get in the creative field and work on projects with me. And you yourself have the engineering background going into the creative field. I also have an engineering
Yeah, I
background,
know. Yeah.
MET degree, went to Purdue,
Mhm.
and immediately upon finishing school went straight into the filmmaking. Got hired by a company to do the filmmaking work, and prior to that, it was a year and a half internship of doing video work, photo work, all the creative stuff. And I agree like wholeheartedly. So many people will ask you, why did you do engineering
Yeah.
if you'd rather do something else? But they overlap so much.
Exactly,
That,
because it's all about technology, and now that as we are moving more and more towards digital, coming from the film world, I think this is our engineering knowledge always helps in the problem solving. I would
mm-hmm.
say that like something goes wrong with the camera or lights or anything, at least you have that backup knowledge with you, which you can utilize, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just understanding how lenses work.
Yes.
So like when you take a physics class, you're gonna the class is going to explain exposure. They're going to teach aperture, and whether or not they actually call it that, whenever you're taking a physics classes, you're working with lenses and you're understanding how refraction works and
Yeah.
how light bends around
Mm-hmm.
certain shapes, and all of that really does come into play. And you can tell it, at least for me, whenever
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching certain films, you have so much more appreciation for people that get the physics right
Yes. Yeah.
with VFX
Yes.
work, with like
Yes.
falls, like whatever it is. If you have that technical mindset and a creative mindset, you can make projects go above and beyond to the next level, right?
That's true. And now, because audience is much more, I would say, knowledgeable because of the internet, because of the, I would say, just social platforms where they know more stuff about filmmaking. 20 years ago, I think, and plus, I think the cell phones becoming like more and more powerful. I think everybody has some sort of a making knowledge with the Instagram stories and the Facebook
Yeah.
videos, I think. So I think having that technical knowledge always helps, I guess.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And is there, I talk about like all the films and all the media, everyone's inspired by something different. For me, coming into it, it was YouTube. Like I saw I always saw movies and I thought they were cool. I really like Star Wars and all that. But coming in and seeing YouTube videos, I never had aspirations for Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I want to make cool VFX videos. I want to make shorts on YouTube. Was there a piece of work or some sort of content, a movie or like just a short skit that you saw that was like, I really want to make this.
How?
I'm inspired.
There are many. So I would tell you this, that any Indian you take, people from India, they are fascinated by films
Hmm.
because India is that like, and I wouldn't exaggerate things, but in India, sometimes films become a religion.
Really?
That much passionate people are, even if they are not making a career in it, but everybody watches films as a, and that is like a kind of a family outing together. So yeah, I have like lot of references where I was, what do you call it as, I was motivated or like driven by the fact, but at that point I think maybe in my childhood I had never looked at it in that way, that like okay,
Yeah.
I want to make it. But probably in recent 3 4 years I started digging more into filmmaking and started watching world cinema, I think. But one filmmaker who like inspired me a lot is Hitchcock, I think. And when I
Yeah.
saw the Psycho, I think that was a moment that like okay, this guy like presents the movie more from the visual point of view rather than like dialogues and stuff. And that was, and even for this film, I think that was the one of the inspirations, saying that like to use minimum of dialogues and tell the story more from the camera point of view, I think. But yeah, that is one filmmaker who actually inspired a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I can kind of tell that. So whenever we shot your video, and cinematography, like I was trying to get an understanding of the vision that you wanted, and as we're shooting it, if you watch that video, you can remove the audio on your short film and still understand probably 99% of what happens. Like it tells itself in a way, and then the narration was a nice touch, and I think it really brings it to life. But your ability to tell the story without even needing the without needing the dialogue was really impressive, and that goes back to, like you mentioned, tell a story 3 times, once with the script, once with the shooting, and once with the edit, the final edit going out.
Yeah, and especially I would credit this back to the story writer, Harsh Mahadeshwar. He's a writer on this film, and he actually suggested that like try using less of a dialogues, because you save a lot of time, that like syncing your sound in a post, because 48 hours every minute counts, I think. So that was the main brief from his side as well. So it was all in the screenplay mainly, that like the way he written it was all visually. And that is one, I would say, takeaway for the 48 hours film would be that like try minimizing the dialogues. That will help you be more creative on the editing, I think.
Yeah. And I think we can go back a little further now. So we've talked about a lot of your recent projects where you want to be, but I think the farthest back we've gone so far is talking about kind of like your caricature work and that creative side you had back in India. What does what was your upbringing like overseas? What was it like with your family? You mentioned that you always had this creative like itch that you were always trying to fulfill. Could you describe for some of the people that aren't familiar what it's like over there?
Yeah, so I come from a small town in India called Vengurla, and that is probably the size of Columbus, I would say, exactly the similar size. Upbringing is mainly the coastal region. My father was a teacher, so he was more into the books and reading newspapers, so he cultivated those habits into me. And the first life changing moment for me was I had a summer vacation after my 10th, when I passed out from the 10th, and he gave me an autobiography of one of the biggest caricature artists, R.K. Lakshman. He is one of India's renowned caricature artists. So he gave me his autobiography and told me to read it. And after that 1 month, I finished that entire book. And I don't know, somehow I started thinking that like his life story and my life story until that when I was like 14 years were pretty much similar, because I was a kind of brat. I like so my parents were always worried about that, like what I'm doing and what all the things I'll be getting myself in trouble with. So I started connecting dots and thinking that like, and since I was like maybe I think in the 2nd grade or 3rd grade, I used to draw. So I thought that like, okay, this would be a good extension of normal drawing, I think, because caricature is probably more about observation, how you look at people and identify the small flaws in their faces, I think. I would say. So that helped, and with that book, I started actually copying the caricatures from other artists, started reading about them, and that actually gave me an edge over like trying to like set myself apart. And I worked almost for like 7 years as a caricature artist for the newspapers. But I would say, again, linking back to the filmmaking skills, that caricature artist, because for caricature you have to draw cartoon strips where you have to tell a story in a one picture or like one sketch, where you are literally telling some sort of a bigger message in that one, and that helps back into the filmmaking. Plus it helps in the casting process.
Casting.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing to say, but because as a caricature artist, you have a keen observation, you can similarize the faces, you can find a similarity between the faces. So whatever you have written, like, or writer has written into the script, you can tie it back, visualize it easily, I think. And that helps in the casting process, that like how the character should look or should not look, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of times whenever you're doing decision making and filmmaking, it's important not just to know what you want, but sometimes you don't.
Yes.
So then you have to figure out, well, what do I not want? Like, what's the opposite? And then and that kind of cultivates and will define the direction you want to move towards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my major chunk of the childhood years, I think, and then I got into the college. I was a really shy person, means like I had a stage fear. So in one of the engineering years, I failed. So I had like so I had
The whole year or one class?
1 year.
Oh my gosh.
1 year. So I had this is funny story. So I had like 1 year gap. So I was sitting home. So my mom is like, okay, if you are not doing anything, just go and explore the theater. There was a theater group in my hometown. So she pushed me to actually go and like try out theater. And that's where this entire bug of filmmaking or acting or all those things started actually.
Yeah.
So I explored the acting there. And that actually really inspired me to actually do more stuff. And going back into the school after that 1 year gap, I started like performing more on the stage. Like I started directing my own plays.
Yeah.
I was also doing the dance performances, and that actually whole thing gave me a different life, I think, because now I knew that like, okay, I can do this, and that was giving me different kind of high, I think. And
Yeah.
so the performing art is like a big part of my life, which actually took me back to this filmmaking journey.
Yeah. There's usually, I mean, there's an infinite number of ways to move up through a process as far as learning and experience and growth, and how you get to those like management roles in a company or like the director roles in filmmaking. Either you were on a fast track where, you know, they're cultivating, like they're putting you through mentorships to be a leader within, you know, 5 to 10 years. And there's other people that go around and learn every part of a process. So for engineering, you might go into drafting, which is actually what my route was going initially. So you start out in drafting, and then you work to quality. So then you understand how the products was designed, and then you understand why they fail, or most commonly where they fail. And then you can move into like R&D. So then you're able to start developing changes. And after a certain point, you can work your way up to those managerial roles, the director roles, the VP roles, because you have this knowledge of oversight. And generally, you have those two routes. But in your case, while you did have experience with the acting, you had experience with the writing, the characters, and understand the casting, you had a little bit of everything. But you didn't have the formal training. You never went to school for it. What has been the most impactful way to learn for you? Has it been YouTube tutorials? Has it been like you had a friend that taught you how to use Premiere? Did you pay for online classes? Like where did all this information, did you just work on it, practice, and you eventually picked it up?
Yeah, so I would credit completely. I would say 99% of my learning came from YouTube.
Yep.
So I think I would credit back to YouTube. So 99%, I was just literally, I was shooting some stuff on my cell phone, used to go back and watch a tutorial on how to do sky replacement and try to implement it back, and that's how I learned, I think. So, and after that, I think I joined other classes like master class. So on the master class, there are like different filmmakers who teach you, but no formal training, I would say, just mainly 99% YouTube, I guess.
Was there one class or one YouTube video that, I mean, you mentioned sky replacement, was there like one thing that you're like, oh my gosh, this changes everything about how I edit?
I would say basically just using the transition, because the one transition which I would say I love to use, and I think it goes back when films weren't shot on digital cameras, going back to the films, is the dissolve.
The dissolve?
Yeah, I know this is a weird thing to say, but that is one of the transition which I end up using a lot. And there was one video which actually talked specifically about this one transition, that like what different ways you can use that dissolve transition and how it can impact your videos, I think.
Yeah.
I know this is this is extremely weird thing to say, but yeah, that like dissolve transition, that is one thing.
No, I don't think it's weird at all. It's like anything. As far as the fundamentals of engineering goes, you are given a tool, and you have to use your problem-solving mindset. Like, how many different ways can I use this tool to convey different messages? How many different results can I get using this one variable? And I think that's a really cool principle to take away.
Yeah.
Just in general. So it's all about problem solving.
Yeah, 100%. And plus, I think Indie Mogul was the one of the channel which was actually one of the key for me that like to learn, because they were teaching about the frugal filmmaking
Mm-hmm.
and like what are the best ways to do it. So that was the one of the channel which actually motivated me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you work with a lot of people
Mhm.
that ask a lot of questions, like why'd you go into engineering? And I'm sure a number of other things. What is the question either you get the most or the biggest misunderstanding about what it is that you do or what it is about filmmaking or directing? Like, is there a question that you get over and over again?
Yes, means like mainly, I would say that like 3 or 4 years ago, that question, these kind of questions used to come more often. But now I think because of the technology development, or like just because of the sheer internet, everybody's kind of aware of what you are doing. But mainly that like people who I work, because mainly I think I work with the people I work in the office.
Yeah.
So most of them are not from the film background, so I have to literally teach them exactly what are the steps. So most of them didn't know exactly what is the difference between the producer, director, what exactly director does, because
Yeah.
they initially thought the director is the one who actually directs. Plus, I think do everything together. So that is
Mm-hmm.
a one-stop shop sort of thing. So yeah, I would say. But now I think in last 1 year or so, everybody is pretty much aware of the filmmaking. So I don't get that many silly questions. And plus, I think I don't work that much now. I think because the last 2 years I'm trying to work more and more with the people who are professional, and that was the whole takeaway from last couple 3 years of 48 hours,
Yeah.
thinking that like I have HODs or the head of the department who know their stuff, and that was the main, I would say, turning point for this year's 48 hours film. That like I had a writer who knew his stuff. I had a cinematographer who was amazing,
Yeah.
who knew his
Thanks.
stuff. So exactly. So that I am trying to stay away from that zone, I guess now.
So for people that are watching or listening
Mm.
and they don't know what the difference is between a producer and a director, could
Mm.
you explain that briefly?
Yeah. So I would say that like I would say the director's vision is what brings everything together. So director is a one person who is trying to uh, finish the project in time, like see the end film how it will look like, and producer is one who helps director to achieve that vision and provide all the amenities to make it happen, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know if I explain it in a nutshell,
No,
but
I think that was pretty well spoken. You got the main guy that's kind of like a project manager,
mm-hmm.
and then you have that team lead,
Mm-hmm.
and the project manager is generally the one trying to help the team lead meet goals, meet deadlines, meet expectations.
Yeah,
We're in an engineering town, so
exactly.
it's a fair evaluation. And then we have a couple more questions that we're going to throw out, and I
Mm-hmm.
think we're getting to the closing here. But
Sure.
for people that are creative, that
Mm-hmm.
may be in a technical background, or just in general, what is your advice for people that are interested in what you do?
Just keep doing stuff, because now I think now is the time when you cannot come up with any sort of excuses, because your phones are as powerful, they can shoot 4K videos now.
Yeah.
So just do it, I think. And even you don't need a bigger laptop, at least to get started with. You
Mm-hmm.
can edit on your phone. There are like different sort of app which you can do it. So there is no reason not to do it. If you
Yeah.
like it, just go ahead and do it, I think.
Yeah, that's really interesting because like the phones nowadays, anything that's coming out in the last like 2 years is more powerful than cameras from 5, 6 years
Oh
ago.
yes,
It's
yeah.
by far, and the computers same with them. You know.
Mhm. Yeah, because this is perfect timing, I think. In 2019 or like last 3 or 4 years, you have all sort of avenues. YouTube has changed the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
You have no excuses not to learn anything. You don't need to go anywhere physically, because you can find out 10 reasons not to go there, because it might take 20 minutes to drive there, but now you can just sit in your on your laptop and learn all those things. So I
Yeah,
think
I've seen people put out some really good high quality videos,
hmm
and they were edited on their own cell phones.
yeah,
So
exactly.
shoot, edit, you write, shoot, edit, repeat, all from one device. You can even
Exactly.
upload from a phone now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's completely changing the game.
Mhm.
And then I think that's other than asking you where people can find you, people with questions that if you're willing to
Mhm.
answer those questions, where can they contact you as far as social media, email, that type of thing?
Yeah, so on Facebook, we have our Facebook page called Manmoji Films, and I know this is going to be difficult to type in, so probably I think you can leave the link below. But
Yep, link will
it's
definitely be in the below.
MANMAUJI Films
Okay.
on Facebook, and it's the same YouTube channel.
All right. M-A-N.
Manmauji
Okay.
films.
Okay.
Manmauji. And
Manmoji.
Manmauji means free spirited.
Free spirit. Okay,
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah,
I've always wondered what it meant,
yeah.
so I'm glad we cleared that one up. And then I think we had one more thing. I always try to keep my notes up, but I forgot to leave the screen open. Is there anything last bit that you want to share with people? Whether it's advice, something about yourself, any introspective pieces, anything like that?
I would say just get into different sort of film festivals or like different types of competitions, because competition is one thing which uh, pushes you to do
Mm-hmm.
things which you will never imagine. Because, and this is the worst thing for me, I think, and I am trying to break that I only sometimes, like, there are years where I ended up making just one film, and that is just through this 48 hours film.
Yeah.
But I think just get into the competition, get out there and do it. I think you will make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and make fun of yourself, I think, but you'll end up learning something.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Abby. Appreciate you
Thank you,
coming in,
Tristan.
talking about your past and everything that you're trying to attain in this life, going strong with the filmmaking.
Hey,
If people are tuning in and they want to follow up with Abby, he got his contacts. We'll have those description links below. If you're watching on Spotify, you can find him on Facebook now. If you guys know of anybody that is creative, an individual, or maybe they work for a company, but maybe like Cummins, and you think that they would be a great fit to come on, share some of their talents, share what it is that they do, or you just think they have a great story, let us know. Comment section below. Reach out to us, and we'd be happy to have them as well. I'm sure there's a lot of really good stories out there like Abby's. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and thanks for coming in, Abby.
hey, thank you, thank you. It was great working with you, and hopefully we'll work on many more projects like
Yep.
this.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Hey, thank you.
All